The ashes of Fidel Castro are making their way across Cuba. The 800-kilometer procession will end in the city of Santiago. Thousands of Cubans have gathered along the route to pay their respects. CCTV's Callebs joins us live now. So, Sean, what is the latest on the procession?
Well, the procession is expected to make it here tomorrow sometime around noon. They expect Fidel Castro's ashes will be in the city sometime around 1:30 or 2. We are standing in the Revolutionary Square here in Santiago de Cuba, where there is going to be a tremendous event tomorrow night. The last major service for Fidel Castro, very similar to the one that played out in Havana earlier in the week, basically a state funeral here. And it's nothing like driving across an entire nation, stopping along the way, watching the procession, listening to what people had to say to get a real sense of what Cubans think about the passing of the legendary Fidel Castro. This is how many Cubans are watching Fidel Castro's long goodbye unfold as Castro's ashes continue the journey to Santiago de Cuba. Hedeliza Linares was just 2 years old when Castro came to power.
I have felt very sad because I was practically born with the revolution. I grew up with this revolution. I got accustomed to see in this figure our comandante.
A stone's throw from the small cantina in the town of Taguasco, 250 kilometers outside of Havana, countless vehicles roll by, each one jammed with dozens of people. It's part of the government's mobilization effort to help thousands say a final farewell to Castro.
I still believe that in many ways he is still alive, that he is not gone. He will stay with us.
Elsewhere, 25-year-old Serenas Fernandez won't be able to see the caravan pass by. She's working to provide for her 2 children. Fernandez is taking advantage of government reforms and owns this small stand. Cuenta propista, meaning self-employed, Fernandez sells sweets and homemade desserts.
Something big would have been for me to have the opportunity to reach out and touch him and feel him, but unfortunately I couldn't. But young people are feeling the loss because we have a lot to thank him for.
Hours further down the road, near the town of Ciego de Avila, traffic jams become the norm. Police blocked roads to allow Castro's procession wind its way through the national highway and through the back roads, so thousands could pour into the streets. Finally, 800 kilometers or so from Havana, in the distance the rugged Sierra Maestras come into view, while the drive drags on slowly.
All of the houses of the neighbors around here had to have an underground shelter so we could survive the bombing and shooting from the planes that were searching for the rebel army.
Jose Pepin Trapo was 7 when Fidel Castro's guerrilla forces hid and launched missions from these mountains. His father risked death smuggling uniforms to Castro's band of fighters. Today, Trapo owns 50 or so acres of land in the shadow of the Sierra Maestra, where he tends to his horses, cows, and goats. Even though Castro had been in failing health, Trapo is devastated by the loss.
Actually, it's hard for me to talk about that. I'm sorry I'm crying, because this happens to me when I watch him on TV. Even the most hardened person would cry. It is tough.
Almost to a person, that is the reaction we have seen as we made our way from Havana across the country in a drive that took more than 15 hours. Of course, in the future, there's going to be questions. What will this country be like? Will more government reforms come? Will people have more opportunities to make more personal income? But those are all questions to be answered another day. Tomorrow, a major service here, and then finally, early on Sunday morning, 7 o'clock local time, they will lay the remains of Fidel Castro at a historic cemetery here, a cemetery that also has the remains of Jose Marti, the man who brought independence to Cuba, as well as a number of other legendary fighters in Castro's revolution. Lane, back to you.
All right, we see the preparations there behind you. Callebs in Santiago de Cuba.